Now I've just moved house and I produced a video recently on how dangerous the boiler was in the house that we've just moved into. If you've not seen that video, I will leave a link in the description below so you can watch that video after you've watched this one. Now this video is going to show you exactly how many faults I did find on this boiler and show how important it is that when you're buying a house that you get the boiler and the electrics and the plumbing checked by a qualified person. Now, it didn't really bother me that the plumbing was rubbish and the boiler was rubbish because they were going to be changed anyway, but it could mean a massive expense to a lot of people when they've just moved into a new house. So let's get on with it and find out exactly how many faults I did find on this boiler, which is getting changed next weekend. Now my boiler is a Worcester 28i Junior combination boiler. Now the first thing I found is actually a plus. So from the 1st of October 2022, all private landlords must comply with the changes to the smoke and carbon monoxide alarm amendments for the regulations 2022. But I'm not a tenant, I own the house. But when we install a new boiler, I am going to have to install a CO alarm because this new boiler will be installed in a cupboard which is in Will's bedroom. So better safe than sorry. Now the next couple of faults I found, which are the really dangerous ones, well, I found when I took the casing off to service the boiler. Another thing I've just noticed, see that big split where the gas tube comes in? This is another fault what happens to them as long, and the bearing what's in there. So my boiler is condemned. Oh, my wife's gonna go mad. No heating and hot water tonight. Oh. Now, looking at this one, it looks like it's proper stuck inside. Can you see all the aluminium oxide around the back? And I don't think this will come out easy. But let's have a go. Let's see if we can lift it up. Not a chance. Not a chance is that gonna come out. And this is why it's so important that these are serviced. God. Now let's have a look on this internal collar to see if the fluid's been sealed. And in a word, no, it's not been sealed at all. Now GasSafe have produced a technical bulletin 152 which tells you when flues need to be sealed internally and externally. But Worcester have also produced their own technical bulletin about sealing flues, and here it says the flue must be at least sealed on the internal structure of the wall. So it should be sealed. And it says technically both should be sealed internally and externally, but you can use a rubber seal on the outside to stop rain and products of combustion coming in, as long as it's sealed on the inside with building materials. And it isn't, is it? So I'll have to make sure I seal the flue up on the inside and the outside of the new boiler. Now let's take a closer look at the pipework below. Now let's take a look at this LPG gas line first. As you can see, it's sleeved, but the sleeve isn't sealed, and the pipework isn't sealed to the sleeve like it should be. Next thing, the filling link between the non-return valve and the filling valve has been left connected, and according to the water regulations, this should be disconnected. Now it's not the worst pipework I've ever seen in my life, but it's also not the best pipework. So let's have a look and see what's missing from under the boiler. Now, dependent upon the make, the model of the boiler and the area where you live in the UK, you should expect to see quite a few things underneath that boiler. We've only got a filling loop. First thing what's missing on the return is a magnetic filter to catch any magnetite. So they should all have magnets. So this is a compact one by Trapex, which I'm going to be installing on the new boiler because we won't have a lot of room underneath there. So this allows me to draw the magnet out from the front of it here rather than the top like a lot of other filters do. So all boilers now require a magnetic filter when they've been installed, and this is also going to help you save energy and prolong the life of the boiler. Now again, depending on where you live in the UK, you might need to fight line scale on your cold water pipe coming into the boiler to stop your plate to plate heat exchanger scaling up. Now I live in the northwest where we've got very soft water. We don't need a line scale fighter, so that won't be going on the new one. Now again, on the cold water, depending on what the make and model of your boiler is, you may require a little mini shock arrestor on the cold mains coming into the boiler, and that's mainly if you've got a non-return valve in the line or a water meter and you've got a plastic or composite hydroblock. Now this Worcester does have a composite hydroblock, but we don't have a water meter. But we do have pumped water. So this should have a mini shock arrestor on there to protect the boiler's components inside. But a lot of different boiler manufacturers say you need these or you don't need them. It all depends on the manufacturer. Also, we should have one of these fitted, because all our radiators in the house, including the two towel rads, have thermostatic radiator valves. This is an automatic bypass which goes between the central heating flow and the central heating return. So when all the TRVs shut down, this still allows water to pass through the boiler and circulate it around to get rid of any residual heat and pump pressure. So that should have been installed, but it hasn't been, and that will be going on the new boiler. Or I might be changing some of the thermostatic radiator valves anyway. And then the last thing which I will be fitting on the new boiler, which goes on the flow pipe, is this deaerator. So this deaerator goes as close as you can get it to the warmest part of the boiler, so it'll be on the flow pipe just beneath the boiler, and it gets rid of any micro bubbles which is created by the pump because it's centrifugal force. It could cavitate, or where pipe reduces from a large size to a small size also can create cavitation and micro bubbles. So these are another must to go on your flow pipe on your central heating, which again is going to prolong the life of the boiler and going to save you energy. So quite a few things are missing off the bottom of this boiler. Just remember though, depending on where you are in the UK and depending on the boiler manufacturer, means you might not need all of these bits of equipment. Now let's take a look at the overflow discharge pipe, because these are always wrong. Now the regulations have changed since this boiler was installed, which now says, it's the building regulations, that condensate pipes need to be a minimum of 32mm waste pipe, which is insulated. So when we go on the outside of the boiler and have a look at the outside, we'll see if this actually does comply with the building regs. And again, because the new boiler needs to comply with the regs, I will have to update the condensate pipe. Now down at the bottom here you can see we've got some earth cabling, which technically isn't required underneath this boiler because it's not in a wet area. Now if we take a look up here, you can see there are some boiler fix valves installed on this central heating system. Now not all boiler fix valves are allowed on central heating because they don't take the higher temperature. So that's what it looks like underneath my boiler. Lots to do underneath here when we're changing the boiler next week. So let's take a look outside. Now you can see we're on LPG here, so there's our storage tank down at the bottom of the garden. The gas pipe runs across the garden here and then down by the side of the house in between us and next door. So there's the boiler and the pipework is there. Now shall we have a look and see if this Worcester flue is actually sealed on the outside? Well, there's a big shock. No, it's not. Even the weather collar wouldn't stop any products of combustion or rain coming into the house, or spiders, as you can see. So that is not sealed. Also, I am 6'2", and you can see the flue is actually 176 centimetres. Now if the flue is less than 2 metres off the ground, it requires a terminal guard, which it doesn't have, so I will have to install a terminal guard on the new boiler. Now this is the terminal guard I'm going to be using, and I don't know whether you can see or not, but this is actually coated in plastic to help protect it from the condensate from the products of combustion, which is acidic. So the rules for this are you have to have a 50mm gap all the way around and 50mm from the front of the terminal. So this is what I'm going to be using, so I comply with the building regs and BS 5440 part 1, which is flues. Now also, because our flue is facing next door's boundary, we need to be 600mm away from next door's fence. And we are actually 750mm away, so that's okay. Let's check how this gas pipe is installed outside, and again, you can see the sleeve isn't sealed, but the pipe should not be sealed to the sleeve, which it isn't, so that's okay. So let's take a look at this pipe further down till we come to the ECV and the labelling. So you can see the label is there to tell customers or the owners how to turn the gas off. I will also need to check and make sure that the gas pipe going under the ground is made of MDPE and not galvanised steel. And if it is galvanised steel, then I'll need to report it to the supplier of the gas. Now let's take a look at the condensate pipe on the outside, and you can still see it is overflow pipe. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to expose this condensate pipe under this pathway here where the stones are to see if it goes to a soakaway, because we're also on a septic tank. So our condensate cannot go down the drain, because if it did go into our septic tank, it could kill the bugs in there and cause us future problems. So let's have a good dig down here and see if we are actually on a soakaway. And there is actually something correct on this installation. So we do have a soakaway. So the way this works is this little pipe down here will be full of limestone chippings. The condensate pipe will then go into the limestone chippings and be neutralised, which will then allow it to soak into the ground. But is the soakaway actually installed in the right location? Well, on this job I knew the correctness wouldn't last very long. There's our soakaway, and as you can see it's not buried very deep, so you could actually walk on top of it and break it quite easily. So I'm going to have to dig it deeper, but also the soakaway requires to be more than 500mm away from the footings to the centre of this pipe, and as you can see it's 200 and round about 80mm, so that's going to have to be moved as well. Now this is the stuff I'm going to be replacing this dodgy condensate line with. This is Condensate Pro. Now Condensate Pro is the only product out there on the market, out of the box, which complies with all the current standards and regulations. So British standards, manufacturer's instructions, the HHIC and your benchmark scheme. This is the only one which complies with that. Obviously out of the box, you don't need to do anything to it, and it comes in kit form, so you can buy pre-formed bits like this, you can buy a lagging. So depending on what job you're doing will depend on what boxes you buy. So I don't know whether this is going to be able to go under the ground or not. So what I'm going to do is the bits what do go under the ground, which I'm going to be covering, I'll protect it with some PVC tape. So that's what I'm replacing the dodgy condensate line with. I'm using Condensate Pro. So you can see there's quite a few products which are needed to bring this new boiler I'm going to be installing up to the current regulations. I still need to test the water quality. I am going to do a Magna cleanse of the system, and I also need to put my chemicals into the system as well as the controls. So there's still a few more things to get. So hope you like the video. Look out for the video coming soon on the installation of the new boiler. Catch you on that one. Cheers guys.